Pity me during this holiday season. I have to spend 8 hours in the car with my Trump-loving brother on our way home to Ohio.
And in my mother's womb was fashioned to be flesh in the time of 10 months, being compacted in blood of the seed of man.
That's right.
Of the seed of man.
The word seed is sperm, and sperm comes through having sex.
It's shut out of your father's rod.
Right.
Put it in layman terms, in his penis.
That's right.
That means a man put his penis in a woman and bust off in it.
Then the angel said to him, "Take out the entrails of this fish, and lay up his heart and his gall and his liver for thee. For these are necessary for useful medicines."
The rest of the chapters of the book of Esther,
Go ahead.
which are found neither in the Hebrew nor in the Chaldee.
Greetings, fellow workers, slaves, podcasting at 128 kilobits from the Fortress of Squalitude, not far from the Redneck Mecca. This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park Podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. Professor Fuzznuts is curled up in my arms, demanding attention. Little shitbag. Ash is eating his dinner. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and his cats. Get over it. This is... well, I can't really call it a biblical apocrypha episode since we're now into the Gnostic stuff. So it's a Gnostic Gospels episode, I guess, where Skullbeard and I read a few chapters from one of the Gnostic Gospels. Next episode will be a news episode, and get to the good bits here, and then we'll get into this. The good bits is I want to thank everybody who donated to help me get Ash to the vet. I have got the money. I just haven't had the time to get him to the vet. Work has been a nightmare. And then yesterday, I got home from work, and I'm like, I got to take care of some things, but see about calling the vet to get Ash looked at. I had a big old cup of coffee, drank the cup of coffee, figuring that'll keep me awake. Shortly after I finished the cup of coffee, I was like, I'm exhausted. I'm going to lay down, take a nap. Figured, set my alarm for 2 hours. Woke up after about an hour. Thought I was going to blow chunks. I felt awful. Awful. Just absolutely awful. I spent the rest of the day just laying in bed. Miserable. I even told the cat sitter not to come by and get the key because I didn't know if I was going to be barfing all over them or anything else or what. So, fortunately, I didn't barf, and I'm feeling better, so I'll be able to go to Ohio. But that's why I couldn't get Ash to the vet. I'll talk to the cat sitter. He may be willing and able to take Ash while I'm gone. If not, I'll get him as soon as I can when I get back. I'm due back on the 27th. So, that's a bit of a wait, but they'd be closed on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day anyways, and Sunday, so. But, and if you're wondering why I don't take Ash to the vet now, it's 4:30 in the morning on Saturday, and my brother will be here to pick me up in a couple hours. And the cat sitter will be here about the time my brother gets here to get the key and get shown everything. So, that's why, I'm sorry, somebody is just demanding so much attention that it's hard for me to concentrate. Yes, he must know I'm getting ready to leave, even though I haven't started packing my bags yet. He must know something's up, because he is just demanding the attention. Yes, the little kitty monster. Who's a little kitty monster? I had planned to have a new theme for the Pistis Sophia, but with everything going on and me not feeling well, I didn't get around to it. So the next time we do one of these episodes, hopefully I'll have a theme for it. Now, the tasty little tidbits that were kind of talked about, but not really in that introduction, that I'm not reading because, well, it was just gobbledygook. So let me just get a bit from the Wikipedia on it, because that's more interesting, and it'll be faster for me to get it there than try and dig through that introduction to find the relevant bits. Pistis Sophia is a Gnostic text discovered in 1773, possibly written between the 3rd and 4th centuries AD. The existing manuscript, which some scholars place in the late 4th century, relates one Gnostic group's teachings of the transfigured Jesus to the assembled disciples, including his mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Martha. In this context, transfigure refers to Jesus after his death and resurrection, not the events during his life, where he spoke to appearances of Moses and Elijah on a mountain. In this text, the risen Jesus has spent 11 years speaking with his disciples, teaching them only the lower mysteries. After 11 years, he receives his true garment and is able to reveal the higher mysteries revered by this group. The prized mysteries relate to complex cosmologies and knowledge necessary for the soul to reach the highest divine realms. Now, of course, nobody knows what the actual title of the book is. They just put that Pistis Sophia on there because that was written in part of the text, so that seemed like the relevant, the best way to title it, because the first few pages were missing. It is not quite as dry as some of the other shit we've been reading on the show, so you have that to look forward to. A couple other things I'll bring up before we get to Skullbeard and I reading this. I was listening to an PRI podcast. I think it's PRI. I don't know. Well, it's an NYC Studios podcast, which is connected to PRI and NPR, even if they're not all owned by one another. And it had some interesting discussions. The title of the episode, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes, is The Seen and the Unseen. And one of the things they were talking about in this episode, and it comes later on, two things that are kind of interesting. One is they were talking about a painter named Hilma af Klint, who, had these visions and all this other stuff. And, she was a bit of a mystic, even though she lived in the late 19th, early 20th century. She, and the thing that got me about the piece was, this artist used, what the fuck is the term for it? Let me think here. I don't remember the specific term they used. It's like automatic writing is for authors. You know how people just sit down and they won't pay any attention to what their fingers are doing, and then when they're done, they see this novel or text, whatever. Henry Miller, who wrote Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer, Crazy Cock, and a whole bunch of other novels. That's the method that he used. She used a thing of whatever a comparable technique is called for painting. And so the woman that they're interviewing at the museum where this woman's art is now on exhibit is talking about all this, and she's just in awe of the whole spiritualist stuff. And when I say in awe, she's not taking it as, well, this is obviously her tapping into her subconscious and using that, and it's manifesting itself as visions of saints or whomever. No, she's treating it straight on as if this woman actually was really possessed by these saints or whomever, and to do the paintings. And, she, like, one of the things is she says, oh, and she was a spiritualist, and she created her own spiritualist circle with 5 women, and the spiritualists at that time thought it had to be, to have a correct circuit, you had to have male, female, all the way around. It had to be, like 11 people or 12 people or 13 people or whatever, because that was the only way the spiritual current could flow through one another. And how could this have had, how could she have done this? I want to know her techniques. And then she did a year-long cleanse. How did she come up with this? Was it the Eastern philosophy she studied? Was it something from Lutheranism? And I'm like, lady, do you not understand anything about religion and stuff like that? The spiritualist circles, if there's let me find the name of this. Okay, I think the name of the book is called Houdini, The Career of Eric Weiss, American Self-Liberator, Europe's Eclipsing Sensation, World's Handcuff King, and Prison Breaker. That may be it. I don't know. Back when NPR used to do audiobooks over the radio, I listened to it, and that would have been the late 90s, and this book was written published in 96, so I think it's the one. A lot of them are titled Houdini, so I can't really find it. But anyways, Houdini, of course, investigated spiritualist mediums and seance circles, and the book very clearly drives home the point that at least the ones that Houdini investigated all tended to be things for, men and women to get together in a room, hold hands, and feel each other up when the lights were out, and the rest of the stuff was just a distraction, because the thing that really sticks out in my mind is he was talking about one incident that Houdini investigated, and Houdini didn't publicly admit any of this, but he wrote about it in a letter to his friend. He admitted to exposing the medium, but he didn't he didn't go into full detail about what happened. The medium was this woman. I don't remember her name or her husband's name. Anyway, she was a very young woman in England, married to a very old lord. And so they were doing a seance, and at some point in the seance, somehow Houdini had arranged for the lights to come on, and I think the table to be tipped over. Anyways, the lights came on, and it revealed, how she was faking the manifestations of the spirit. And you also saw that one of the guys, who was very much younger than the Lord, had his hands up her skirt. So, that was... they were a grope session. So, this woman talking about, I just don't know. How could you have done the spirit circle with only 5 women and no men? Really? I think we might have an idea what was going on in that spirit circle. And while there was a lot of talk of, oh God, I don't think anybody actually believed God was manifesting himself there, if you know what I mean. But, and then in another segment, they go on to talk about the connection between spiritualism and women's rights movement. And in one of these 2 segments, and I don't remember which one it was, there's a guy talking about Hanukkah. And I didn't know this, and I wish I had. According to this guy, the whole story about how it's a celebration of the oil lasting 8 days when it only should have lasted 1 day, that actually comes from nothing. It's made up completely. Because there's an incident in Maccabees, and I forget what he's taught, exact all the details about it, but one of the Civil War fights in Maccabees is actually the indirect inspiration for the story of Hanukkah. And later on, the Jews were looking for a cultural thing, and they were going to use Maccabees, and it's one of the books of Maccabees that's not accepted by the Bible, either the Catholic Bible or the Greek or Russian Orthodox. It's apparently the only ones found in the Ethiopian Orthodox. Well, they couldn't use that story because elements of it were, they didn't like the Civil War aspect of Jews fighting Jews and things like that. But he mentions all the details in the piece. So they basically made up a whole new incident around a similar kind of situation, and that's the inspiration for Hanukkah. It's, if you go back to the ancient records, they admit that it didn't really happen, but they felt they needed a festival, and that's where it came from. So I found that rather interesting. All right. Now, we will, if Fuzznuts will let me, we will get to part 1 of Skullbeard and I reading Pistis Sophia. And it's going to take us a little while to chew through this whole book. It's not a dull slog, so don't worry about that. But it is going to take us a little while. Because we got to book 21, I think. Chapter 21 of the first book. And there's 63 in this episode, so it will be a little while, and there's however many books, 6, I think, 6, 7, something like it. Anyways, on to part 1 of the Pistis Sophia.
It came to pass when Jesus had risen from the dead that he passed 11 years discoursing with his disciples and instructing them only up to the regions of the first commandment and up to the regions of the first mystery, that within the veil, within the commandments, which is the 24th mystery, without and below those 24, which are in the second space of the first mystery, which is before all mysteries, the Father in the form of a dove.
And Jesus said to his disciples, I am come forth out of that first mystery, which is the last mystery. That is the 24th mystery. And his disciples have not known nor understood that anything existeth within that mystery, but they thought of that mystery that it is the head of the universe and the head of all existence. And they thought it is the completion of all completions, because Jesus had said to them concerning that mystery that it surroundeth the first commandment and the 5 impressions and the green light and the 5 helpers and the whole treasury of the light. And moreover, Jesus had not told his disciples.
And moreover, Jesus had not told his disciples the total expansion of all the regions of the great invisible, and of the 3 triple powers, and of the 24 invisibles, and all their regions and their eons and their orders, how they're extended, those which are the emanations of the great invisible, and they're ungenerated, and they're self-generated, and they're generated, and they're light givers, and they're unpaired, and they're rulers, and they're authorities, and they're lords, and they're archangels, and they're angels, and they're decans? I don't know. And their servitors, and all the houses of their sphere, and all the orders of every one of them.
And Jesus had not told his disciples the total expansion of the emanations of the treasury, nor their orders, how they are extended, nor had he told them their saviors, according to the order of every one, how they are, nor had he told them what guard is at every gate of the treasury of the light, nor had he told them the region of the twin Savior, who is the child of the child, nor had he told them the regions of the 3 Amens, in what regions they are expanded, nor had he told them into what regions the 5 trees are expanded, nor as to the 7 Amens, that is the 7 voices, what is their region, how they are expanded. Okay, he's been hanging around since 11 years after he got nailed to a tree, and he still hasn't managed to tell them all this? What the hell's he been doing?
Netflix and chill?
I guess.
And Jesus had not told his disciples of what type are the 5 helpers, nor into what region they are brought, nor had he told them how great light hath expanded itself, nor into what region it hath been brought, nor had he told them of the 5 impressions, nor as to the first commandment, into what region they had been brought, but he had discoursed with them generally, teaching that they exist, but he had not told them their expansions, and the order of their regions, how they are. For this cause they have not known that there were also other regions within that mystery.
And he had not told his disciples, I have gone forth out of such and such regions until I entered into that mystery and until I went forth out of it. Well, then how do we know any of this? But in teaching them, he said to them, I am come forth from that mystery. For this cause, then they thought of that mystery, that it is the completion of completions, and that it is the head of the universe, and that it is the total fullness. For Jesus had said to his disciples, that mystery surroundeth that universe of which I have spoken unto you from the day when I met with you, even unto this day. For this cause, then, the disciples thought there is nothing within that mystery.
Yeah, I know. It's what? You guys are pulling. This is Religibabble.
Yeah.
Chapter 2. It came to pass...
Drink.
That it's not the Book of Mormon. It came to pass then, when the disciples were sitting together on the Mount of Olives, speaking of these words, and rejoicing in great joy, and exulting exceedingly, and saying one to another, Blessed are we before all men who are on the earth, because the Savior hath revealed this unto us, and we have received the fullness and the total completion. And they said this to one another, while Jesus sat a little removed from them.
Boy, this reminds me of the Book of Mormon, not just because it came to pass, but there's I don't know if you've ever read the Book of Mormon.
No.
Okay, there's a king.
It's chloroform in print, and the Book of Ether puts me to sleep.
Yeah. There's a section on a guy by the name of King Benjamin.
Okay.
And he suddenly decides near the end of his life, everybody in the kingdom were going on a camping trip. So they go out somewhere, set up their tents, right? And he begins preaching to them. And they're all moved by this, the whole, they turn themselves over to God moment type stuff, right?
Right.
And then, after the king is finished speaking, they all begin preaching to one another. And I'm like, they've all heard him. They all agree with him. They all believe in God. So who the hell are they preaching to?
The choir?
Yeah, it's like... It's just bizarre, and this sounds sort of like the same thing. The disciples are all sitting around preaching to one another. It's like, why? I don't know. But anyways.
Because it doesn't make for a good story? I don't know.
And it came to pass, Drink, then on the 15th day of the moon in the month of Tybe, which is the day on which the moon is full, on that day then, when the sun had come forth in his going, that there came forth behind him a great light power shining most exceedingly, and there was no measure to the light conjoined with it. For it came out of the light of lights, and it came out of the last mystery, which is the 24th mystery. From within without, those which are in the orders of the second space of the first mystery, And that light power came down over Jesus and surrounded him entirely, while he was seated, removed from his disciples, and he had shone most exceedingly, and there was no measure for the light which was on him.
Okay. And the disciples had not seen Jesus because of the great light in which he was, and which was about him, for their eyes were darkened because of the great light in which he was. But they saw only the light, which shot forth many light rays, and the light rays were not like one another, but the light was of diverse kind, and it was of diverse type, from below upwards, one ray more excellent than the other. In one great immeasurable glory of light, it stretched from under the earth right up to heaven. And when the disciples saw that light, they fell into great fear and great agitation.
Yeah, so they've all been doing mushrooms. Let's just, that's what this is. They've been doing mushrooms.
That or moldy rye bread, it's hard to say.
Yeah. But they're tripping balls, that's for sure. It came to pass, Drink, then, when that light power had come down over Jesus, that it gradually surrounded him entirely. Then Jesus ascended or soared into the height, shining most exceedingly in an immeasurable light. And the disciples gazed after him, and none of them spake until he had reached unto heaven, but they all kept in deep silence. This then came to pass, Drink, on the 15th day of the moon, on the day on which it is full in the month of Tybee.
Okay. It came to pass then, Drink, when Jesus had reached the heaven after 3 hours, that all the powers of the heaven fell into agitation, and all were set in motion one against the other, they and all their aeons, and all their regions, and all their orders, and the whole earth was agitated, and all they who dwell thereon. And all men who were in the world fell into agitation, and also the disciples, and all thought, peradventure, the world will be rolled up.
How do you roll up a sphere? You
roll it up a hill, down a hill?
I don't know. And all the powers in the heavens ceased not from their agitation. They and the whole world and all were moved one against the other from the 3rd hour of the 15th day of the moon of Tybee until the 9th hour of the morrow. And all the angels and their archangels and all the powers of the height all sang praises to the interiors of the interiors, so that the whole world heard their voices without their ceasing till the 9th hour of tomorrow. Okay, I don't think there's any archaeological records of, people hearing mass singing in 40 something AD.
No, not that I'm aware of. Chapter 4. But the disciples sat together in fear and were in exceedingly great agitation, and were afraid because of the great earthquake which took place. And they wept together, saying, What will then be? Peradventure the Savior will destroy all regions. Thus saying, they wept together.
I wonder if that's the great earthquake talked about in the Book of Mormon.
Could be.
Yeah, which, of course, there's no way Joseph Smith could have known about this book because it didn't hit the English publication until after he died.
1896, if I recall correctly, from the introduction.
This is in the late 1800s, yeah. And he bought it in the mid-1800s, so. Well,
1847 or 48, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Well, they then said this and wept together. Then, on the 9th hour of the morrow, the heavens opened, and they saw Jesus descend, shining most exceedingly, and there was no measure for his light in which he was. For he shone more radiantly than at the hour when he had ascended into the heavens, so that the men in the world cannot describe the light which was on him. And it shot forth light rays in great abundance, and there was no measure for its rays. And its light was not unlike together, but it was of diverse kind and of diverse type, some rays being more excellent than others. And the whole light consisted together. And they're tripping balls again.
Yeah, these guys should slow down.
Yeah.
But then again, mushrooms are mostly harmless. It was a threefold kind, and the one kind was more excellent than the other. The second, that in the midst, was more excellent than the first, which was below, and the third, which was above them all, was more excellent than the two which were below. And the first glory, which was placed below them all, was like to the light which had come over Jesus before he had ascended into the heavens, and was like only itself in its light. And the three light modes were of diverse light kinds, and they were of diverse type, one being more excellent than the other. Sure like their kinds.
Yeah. And it came to pass, drink, then, when the disciples saw this, that they feared exceedingly, and were in agitation. Then Jesus, the compassionate and tender-hearted, when he saw his disciples, that they were in great agitation, spake with them, saying, Take courage, it is I, be not afraid. I've just been butt-probed by the aliens.
I was going to say something along the lines of, take me to your leader.
Yeah.
It came to pass then, when the disciples had heard this word, that they said, Lord, if it be thou, withdraw thy light glory into thyself, that we may be able to stand. Otherwise our eyes are darkened, and we are agitated, and the whole world also is in agitation because of the great light which is about thee. I'd be a little, I don't know.
Yeah.
By a glowing dude.
Yeah. Then Jesus drew to himself the glory of his light, and when this was done, all the disciples took courage, stepped forward to Jesus, fell down all together, adored him, rejoicing in great joy, and said unto him, Rabbi, whither hast thou gone, or what was thy ministry on which thou hast gone? Or wherefore, rather, were all these confusions and all the earthquakings which have taken place? Now they call him Rabbi, which you can't do if he's a single man.
Really? Rabbis are married?
They have to be. You have to be a rabbi, or you have to be married to be a rabbi. I forget the exact rules as to whether or not you can start studying without being married, but you cannot become a rabbi unless you are married.
Huh. Okay. I learn something new every day. Then Jesus the compassionate said unto them, Rejoice and exult from this hour on, for I have gone to the regions out of which I had come forth. Okay. From this day on, then will I discourse with you in openness, from the beginning of the truth unto its completion, and I will discourse with you face to face without similitude. From this hour on will I not hide anything from you of the mystery of the height and of the region of truth. For authority hath been given me through the ineffable. Did somebody F is ineffable? And through the first mystery of all mysteries, to speak with you from the beginning right up to the fullness. Okay. So they're getting the whole thing.
Yeah.
Both from within, without, and from without, within. Hearken, therefore, that I may tell you all things.
It came to pass, drink, when I sat a little removed from you on the Mount of Olives, that I thought on the order of the ministry for the sake of which I was sent, that it was completed, and that the last mystery, that it is the 24th mystery, from within, without, those which are in the second space of the first mystery, in the orders of that space, had not yet sent me my vesture. It came to pass, drink, then, when I had known that the order of the ministry for the sake of which I had come was completed, and that that mystery had not yet sent me my vesture, which I had left behind in it, until its time was completed, thinking then this, I sat on the Mount Olives a little removed from you. Wow. That's a whole lot of words to say absolutely nothing.
How loquacious of them.
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of? Have you have seen Plan 9 from Outer Space?
Oh, it's been an awfully long time since I've seen that.
There's like a narrator sitting at a newscaster type desk, and he's saying, something along the lines of, this concerns us because it takes place in the future, which is a time when we will all live, or something like that. But it's got the same weird kind of cadence and stuff that this does.
Okay.
I may have to find a clip of that on YouTube and drop in the audio.
Nice.
Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future.
Holy fucking hell, that's a long verse.
Yeah.
It came to pass when the sun rose in the east thereafter, then through the first mystery which existed from the beginning, on account of which the universe hath arisen, out of which also I am myself now come, not in my time before my crucifixion, but now it came to pass through the command of that mystery, that there should be sent me my light vesture, which I had given me from the beginning, and which I had left behind in the last mystery. That is the 24th mystery from within without. Those which are in the orders of the second space of the first mystery, that vesture then I left behind in the last mystery, until the time should be completed to put it on, and I should begin to discourse with the race of men, and reveal unto them all from the beginning of the truth to its completion, and discourse with them from the interiors of the interiors to the exteriors of the exteriors, and from the exteriors to the interiors of the interiors. Rejoice then, and exult, and rejoice more and more greatly, for to you it is given that I speak first with you from the beginning of the truth to its completion.
Boy, you got to be on some good drugs to, swallow that and think it's
that's
profound.
A mouthful, and it seems to have no meaning. It's I don't know. Yeah, these guys have got to be tripping.
For this cause have I chosen you, verily, from the beginning. Through the first mystery, rejoice then, and exult. For when I set out for the world, I brought from the beginning with me the 12 powers, as I have told you from the beginning, which I have taken from the 12 saviors of the treasury of the light, according to the command of the first mystery. These then I cast into the womb of your mothers, when I came into the world, that is close which you are, that is those which are in your bodies today. For these powers have been given unto you before the whole world, because ye are they who will save the whole world, and that ye may be able to endure the threat of the rulers of the world, and the pains of the world, and its dangers, and all its persecutions, which the rulers of the height will bring upon you. For many times have I said unto you, that I have brought the power in you out of the 12 saviors who are in the treasury of the light. For which cause I have said unto you indeed from the beginning, that ye are not of the world. I am also not of it. For all men who are in the world have gotten their souls out of the power of the rulers of the aeons. But the power which is in you is from me. Your souls belong to the height. I have brought 12 powers of the 12 saviors of the treasury of the light, taking them out of the proportion of my power which I did first receive. And when I had set forth for the world, I came into the midst of the rulers of the sphere, and had the form of Gabriel, the angel of the eons, and the rulers of the eons did not know me, but they thought that I was the angel Gabriel. So, in other words, he disguised himself to show up to talk to the rulers of the angels of the treasury, and he pretended to be somebody else because reasons.
Yeah. Man of 1,000 faces or whatever. It came to pass then, drink, that I had come into the minds of the rulers of the aeons, and I looked down on the world of mankind by command of the first mystery. I found Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptizer, before she had conceived him, and I sowed into her a power which I had received from the little Io, the good, who was in the midst, that he might be able to make proclamation before me and make ready my way and baptize with the water of the forgiveness of sins. That power then is in the body of John. So, he got a little jiggy with John's mom.
Apparently so.
All right.
And I'm just wondering, what these powers are, because, if you believe the sayings of the church, pretty much all the disciples eventually ended up dead. Or at least a significant number of them. Dead at the hands of the Romans, I should say.
Yep. Died for a lie. I'm quite familiar with the argument.
Moreover, in place of the soul of the ruler, which he was appointed to receive, I found the soul of the prophet Elias in the aeons of the sphere, and I took him hence, and took his soul, and brought it to the Virgin of Light, and she gave it over to her receivers. They brought it to the sphere of the rulers, and cast it into the womb of Elizabeth. So the power of the little Io, who is in the midst, and the soul of the prophet Elias, they were bound into the body of John the Baptizer. So this really sounds like dude's got multiple personalities.
Yep.
For this cause, then were ye in doubt aforetime. When I said unto you, John said, I am not the Christ, and ye said unto me, It standeth written in the Scripture, When the Christ shall come, Elias cometh before him, and maketh ready his way. But when ye said this unto me, I said unto you, Elias verily is come, and hath made ready all things, as it standeth written, and they have done unto him as they would. And when I knew that ye had not understood, well, thanks. Maybe speak a little more directly next time. That I had discoursed with you concerning the soul of Elias, which was bound into John the Baptizer, I answered you in the discourse in openness face to face. If ye like to accept John the Baptizer, he is Elias, of whom I have said that he will come.
Phrasing.
Brevity is the soul of wit, guys.
Yeah, they're not exactly the wittiest bunch I've ever run across. And Jesus continued again in the discourse and said, It came to pass, drink. Then thereafter, that at the command of the first mystery, I looked down on the world of mankind and found Mary, who is called my mother, according to the body of matter. I spake with her in the type of Gabriel, and when she had turned herself to the heights toward me, I cast thence into her the first power which I had received from Barbello, that is the body which I have borne in the height. And instead of the soul, I cast into her the power which I have received from the great Sabaoth, the good, who is in the region of the right.
And the 12 powers of the 12 saviors of the treasury of the light, which I had received from the 12 ministers of the midst, I cast into the sphere of the rulers. And the decans of the rulers and their servitors thought that they were the souls of the rulers, and the servitors brought them, they bound them into the body of your mothers, and when your time was completed, ye were born in the world without souls of the rulers in you. I don't understand. And ye have received your portion out of the power which the last helper hath breathed into the mixture, that power which is blended with all the invisibles and all the rulers and all eons, and a word which is blended with the world of destruction which is the mixture. This power which from the beginning I brought out of myself I have cast into the first commandment, And the first commandment, cast a portion thereof into the great light, and the great light cast a portion of that which it had received into the 5 helpers, and the last helper took a portion of that which it received and cast it into the mixture, and this portion is in all who are in the mixture, as I have just said unto you. I don't understand.
I know, it's just words. And they're not even in intelligible order.
Yeah, I mean, what's this first commandment that he's talking about? Is it, the first commandment of the 10 commandments? Is it something else?
I have no idea. Is it the one from Deuteronomy, or what's the other one, the other set of 10 commandments in Exodus?
Yeah, I think so.
This then Jesus said to the disciples on the Mount of Olives. Jesus continued again in the discourse with his disciples and said, Rejoice and exult and add joy to your joy, for the times are completed for me to put on my vesture, which hath been prepared for me from the beginning, which I left behind in the last mystery until the time of its completion. Now the time of its completion is the time when I shall be commanded through the first mystery to discourse with you from the beginning of the truth to the completion thereof, and from the interiors of the interiors to the exteriors of the exteriors, for the world will be saved through you. Rejoice then and exult, for ye are blessed before all men who are on the earth. It is ye who will save the whole world. Oh, I hope it's not Kanye. I don't think so, though.
It came to pass, drink, then, when Jesus had finished saying these words to his disciples, that he continued again in the discourse, and said unto them, Lo, I have then put on my vesture, and all authority has been given me through the first mystery. Yet a little while, and I will tell you the mystery of the universe and the fullness of the universe, and I will hide nothing from you from this hour on, but in fullness I will perfect you in all fullness, and in all perfection, and in all mysteries, which are the perfection of all perfections, and the fullness of all fullnesses, and the gnosis of all gnosis is those which are in my vesture. I will tell you all mysteries from the exteriors of the exteriors to the interiors of the interiors. But hearken, that I may tell you all things which have befallen me. Man, this is, I mean, this is reading like bad Aleister Crowley.
I kind of miss the rest of Orion stuff.
Yeah.
It came to pass then, when the sun had risen in the east, that a great light power came down, in which was my vesture, which I had left behind in the 24th mystery, as I have said unto you, and I found a mystery in my vesture, written in 5 words, of those from the height, Zama Zama Oza Rakama Ozai, whose solution is this. O mystery, which is without in the world, for whose sake the universe hath arisen, this is the total ongoing and the total ascent, which hath emanated all emanations, and all that is therein, and for whose sake all mysteries and for all their regions have arisen, come hither unto us, for we are thy fellow members. We are all with thyself, we are one and the same. Thou art the first mystery which existed from the beginning in the ineffable, before it came forth, and the name thereof are we all. Now therefore are we all come to meet thee at the last limit, which is also in the last mystery from within, itself is a portion of us. Now therefore we have sent thee thy vesture, which hath belonged to thee from the beginning, which thou hast left behind in the last limit, which also is the last mystery from within, until its time should be completed according to the commandment of the first mystery. Lo, its time is completed. Put it on thee.
And according to Google Translate, that Zama Zama Oza Bobana Fofana Oza is Hausa, which I'm not sure what language that is. But the English translation is become a genius.
Become a genius?
Yes. Now, what is Hausa? I'm not familiar. Hausa language. I've got to look that up. Wow. That's interesting.
I don't know if I like the sound of that.
Oh, you'll find this really interesting. Hausa is the Chadic language with the largest number of speakers, spoken as a first language by some 44 million people and a second language by another 20 million.
Okay. Where are they at?
Chad. The country of Chad.
Oh. Wait a minute. Does that mean Jesus went to Africa for 11 years?
Well, that means he went pretty deep into Africa because, it's native to Niger, Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Togo, and Sudan. That ain't anywhere near like Egypt where he's thought to have gone.
Yeah, no. Okay.
Wow, that is. And it's lingua franca across much of Western Africa for purposes of trade.
That reminds me, did you see the thing on the Ark in the Ethiopian church? The Ark mentioned in Maccabees?
Yeah, that it was
a replica?
Yeah. Yeah, that guy from
Fake Jews.
Yeah, the guy who saw it in World War II and said, "Yeah, it looks just like all the others, and it's certainly nowhere near." I think he pegged it at about 14th or 15th century.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to this. Come unto us. Phrasing. For we all draw nigh to thee to clothe thee with the first mystery and all his glory, by commandment of himself, in that the first mystery hath given us it consisting of 2 vestures, to clothe thee therewith, besides the one which we have sent thee. For thou art worthy of them, since thou art prior to us, and existeth before us. For this cause, therefore, hath the first mystery sent thee through us the mystery of all his glory, consisting of 2 vestures.
In the first is the whole glory of all the names of all mysteries and all emanations of the orders of the space of the ineffable. And in the second vesture is the whole glory of the names of all the mysteries of all the emanations which are in the orders of the 2 spaces of the first mystery. And in the third vesture, which we have just sent thee, is the glory of the name of the mystery of the revealer, which is the first commandment, and of the mystery of the 5 impressions, and of the mystery of the great envoy of the ineffable, who is the great light, and of the mystery of the 5 leaders, who are the 5 helpers, which is further in this vesture the glory of the name of the mystery of all the orders of the emanations of the treasury of the light, and of the saviors, and of the mystery of the order of the orders are the 7 amens, and the 7 voices, and the 5 trees, and the 3 amens, and the twin savior, which is the child, and of the mystery of the 9 guards of the 3 gates of the treasury of the light. There is further therein the whole glory of the name of all those which are in the right, and of all those which are in the midst. And further there is therein the whole glory of the name of the great invisible, which is the great forefather, and the mystery of the 3 triple powers, and the mystery of the whole region, and the mystery of all their invisibles, and of all those who are in the 13th aeon, and the name of the 12 aeons, and of all their rulers, and of all their archangels, and all their angels, and of all those who are in the 12 aeons, and the whole mystery of the name of all those who are in the fate, and in all the heavens, and the whole mystery of the name of all those who are in the sphere, and of its firmaments, and of which who are in them, and of all their regions. Whew.
There was something I can remember reading about not too long ago, and it was this. They were like quoting somebody who is crazy, and who was talking about how they had they were working on a novel, and they had a sentence that went on for like 5 pages.
Holy fuck!
I guess.
Let's give them a run for their money.
Yeah. Lo, therefore, we have sent thee this vesture, which no one knew from the first commandment downwards. For the glory of its light was hidden in it, and the spheres in all regions up from the first commandment downwards have not known it. Haste thee, therefore, clothe thyself with this vesture, and come unto us. For we draw nigh unto thee, to clothe thee by command of the first mystery with thy 2 vestures, other which existed for thee from the beginning, with the first mystery until the time appointed by the ineffable is completed. Come, therefore, to us quickly, that we may put them on thee, until thou hast fulfilled the total ministry of the perfection of the first mystery, which is appointed by the ineffable. Come, therefore, to us quickly, in order that we may clothe thee with them according to the command of the first mystery. For yet a little while, a very little while, and thou shalt come unto us and leave the world. Come, therefore, quickly, that thou mayest receive thy whole glory, that is the glory of the first mystery.
Oh, come, O ye faithful.
Okay, so it took them 11 years, apparently, since the time Jesus got nailed, to this point where they had completed the understanding of the first commandment, which then, opened the door to the first mystery, at which they would now receive something about it and move on to the next one. I mean, how many of these things are there? And how long is it going to take before they understand all this shit?
Probably gonna take the rest of next year to record all this shit, because there's how many books?
Yeah,
6?
Well, I'm not talking about us recording. I'm talking about them. It took them 11 years to get to this point. How long is it going to take them to get to the next point?
They have a point? It's a mystery.
Wrapped up in an enigma.
Oh, yeah.
Buried in the bottom of an outhouse. Under a rabid raccoon.
It came to pass then when I saw the mystery of all these words in the vesture which was sent me, that straightway I clothed myself therewith, and I shone most exceedingly, and soared into the height. Oh, the emperor's got new clothes.
Yeah.
I came before the first gate of the firmament, shining most exceedingly, and there was no measure for the light which was about me, and the gates of the firmament were shaken one over against another, and all opened at once. And all rulers and all authorities and all angels therein were thrown altogether into agitation because of the great light which was on me, and they gazed at the radiant vesture of light with which I was clad, and they saw the mystery which contains their names, and they feared most exceedingly, and all their bonds with which they were bound were unloosed, and every one left his order, and they all fell down before me, adored, and said, How hath the Lord of the universe passed through us without our knowing? Like shit through a goose.
Yeah.
And they all sang praises together in the interiors of the interiors, but me they saw not, but they saw only the light, and they were in great fear, and were exceedingly agitated, and sang praises to the interiors of the interiors. Is that a veiled reference to butt sex?
Well, that would certainly make it a more interesting text.
Yes, indeed it would.
Yeah. And I left that region behind me, and ascended to the first sphere, shining most exceedingly, 49 times more brightly than I had shone in the firmament. It came to pass, drink, then, when I had reached the gate of the first sphere, that its gates were shaken and opened of themselves at once.
I entered into the houses of the sphere, shining most exceedingly, and there was no measure to the light that was about me, and all the rulers and all those who are in that sphere fell into agitation one against another, and they saw the great light that was about me, and they gazed upon my vesture, and saw thereon the mystery of their name. And they fell into still greater agitation, and were in great fear, saying, How hath the Lord of the universe passed through us without our knowing? And all their bonds were unloosed in their regions and their orders, and every one left his order, and they fell down again, adored before me, or before my vesture, and all sang praises together in the interiors of the interiors, being in great fear and great agitation. Motherfucker, if there was a point,
Yeah.
just skip to. That would, make things easier.
Yeah. And I'm just checking here. We are not even a third of the way through this yet.
No.
Because it is 62 chapters, and we are on chapter 13. And I left that region behind me and came to the gate of the second sphere, which is the fate. Then were all its gates thrown into agitation and opened of themselves. And I entered into the houses of the fate, shining most exceedingly, and there was no measure for the light that was about me, for I shone in the fate 40 and 9 times more than in the first sphere.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
And all the rulers and all those who are in the fate were thrown into agitation and fell on one another. Okay, that doesn't sound good. And were in exceeding great fear of seeing the great light that was about me, and they gazed on my vesture of light, and saw the mystery of their name on my vesture, and fell into still greater agitation. And they were in great fear, saying, How hath the Lord of the universe passed through us without our knowing? And all the bonds of the regions and the orders and of their houses were unloosened. They all came at once, fell down, adored before me, and sang praises altogether in the interiors of the interiors, being in great fear and great agitation.
That's it for this episode of The Atheist in the Trailer Park Podcast. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, as well as just about anywhere else podcasts can be found. Many of the episodes are also on YouTube. Follow the show on Twitter. @TParkAtheist is the show's Twitter handle. It's on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist.com. If you happen to like the podcast, please rate it on iTunes. If you'd like to support the podcast, there's a donate button on the show notes page. You can support it via Patreon at patreon.com/TNTucker. Thanks for listening.
Say goodnight, Fuzz-Nuts.
All I know is this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting.
Damned cat.